Good evening and welcome back to another episode of No Huddle Necessary. I am your host, Jeff Barnes. I hope you have enjoyed another weekend of NFL and college football as we had a little late ending with the game today between the Ravens and Steelers, a game that should have been played 6 days ago. So, with that being said, we are now ready to move on to another week of football as we have a lot of topics to discuss. We're going to have a bit of a shootout night tonight as we're going to have just two guests tonight. Right? So we're going to have, of course, Mr. Keith Richards, and of course, the boss, Joe Cardozo, is in the house. So with that being said, we're going to have some fun. We're going to light up these topics, and we're going to let it go all the way to the end and see who wins. So with that being said, well, when this gift comes on, you know who's getting announced. That's right. We're talking about Keith Richards. Keith, come on in.
How's it going? How's it going?
Usually I don't get to watch an NFL game before I come on air tonight, but I can't complain about that. Can't complain about it at all.
It was an interesting game. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, when you figure almost half the starters for the Ravens were supposed to be out, people thought it was going to be a wash. It was a very good game
for the Ravens. Yeah.
So there's one more gift, and when it's the boss's gift, oh man, who's coming in? That's right. We're talking about the boss for Nuts and Bolts Sports. We're talking about the CEO and every other title we want to throw behind it. We're talking about Mr. Joe Cardozo. Joe, welcome back.
What's going on, guys? Good to be here, man. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad we finally got you on. I know you've been extremely busy with the holidays.
I'm glad it's over. I'll leave it at that.
So, everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Ate a lot, man. Woo.
Yeah, I had some seafood, so that was good.
I saw that. Definitely was very jealous. Lucky I don't live nearby, Keith. I would have invited myself.
My Thanksgiving leftovers only lasted 6 days, so that's a good thing. Usually it lasts 2 weeks, the amount of food we normally make. But with that being said, let's get this started on some more football talk. First quarter, here we go. All right. With that being said, we're going to get on the first quarter, and we saw there was a firing before everybody was finished enjoying their Thanksgiving leftovers. That's right. Matt Patricia got the axe. No more pencils in the ears of the headset, beard growing out into the microphone. No more. Detroit said, we're done with you. So he is now on a short list of teams, including the Jaguars, including the Falcons, and of course, including everybody's favorite, the Texans, who are all looking for head coaches. And we haven't even gotten to the end of the season yet because there's, of course, one popular name that everybody is dying to get fired. And we'll talk about him later in the show. So for the 4 openings that are currently available, you guys sell me on who do you think are the best fits for those franchises. So, Keith, you've been here a lot. So I'm not going to let you start this one off. Joe's not here as much as you are. So Joe's starting the show off tonight. So,
okay, cool. Well, I think for the Houston Texans, it's got to be somebody who's an offensive-minded coach. So I would think someone like an Eric Bieniemy kind of comes to mind. I mean, you have a franchise quarterback and Deshaun Watson, and what have you surrounded him with? I mean, we all saw what happened to Will Fuller being suspended for the last couple of games of the season because of PEDs. And besides that, no running back. The offensive line, I mean, Deshaun Watson reminds me a lot of where Russell Wilson was 2 or 3 years ago, whereas every Sunday running for his life and occasionally making a big play here or there. But at least Russell Wilson had some playmakers there. Doug Baldwin was a good receiver for him. Curse, he had some guys that could make some plays, whereas Deshaun Watson is just throwing to people we don't even know. We have to go online and search that person to figure out who they are. So I think for the Houston Texans, you got to have an offensive-minded coach that comes in there and kind of helps Deshaun Watson take his game to a next level. And I think for those other teams you talked about, I think for those teams, Jeff, it's got to be somebody that can change the culture. It's got to be a culture changer. When you think about the Falcons, have not been the same since that 28-3 lead against the Patriots they lost and gave up and lost Super Bowl. I, for one, think Matt Ryan still has some gas left in the tank, as does Julio Jones. You have some other people like Calvin Ridley, You have some offensive weapons, but the defense has been the Achilles heel of the Falcons for a long time. But I think you have to get that stench, even though it's been years, it's still there. You got to get that stench off the Falcons from that Super Bowl loss and get somebody that can change the culture. And exactly the same thing with Jacksonville. I mean, come on. AFC Championship game a couple years ago, nobody from that team, I think except for one linebacker, Jack, is still on the team that made the AFC Championship. So again, for that squad, you need a coach that can come in there and change the culture. And then, of course, you got to find yourself a quarterback, too, in Jacksonville. So that's kind of what I think. I think Houston, a coach is going to focus on the offense that's going to help out Deshaun Watson. Those other openings that you got to have coaches that come in that are going to help be able to change the culture.
All right, good start. Good start. Keith, your turn. Keith, you're on mute.
I'll start over. All right. So the Lions, they're currently 29th in total defense, 31st in points allowed per game. Pencil Patricia, as I like to call him, was supposed to bring some toughness to that team, but he failed miserably at that. I think offensively they'll be fine with a good coordinator. I don't know who's out there, but I don't think they need to spend too much money on it. They have weapons. Matt Stafford is a little bit underrated. I think they can get away with a less of a hire there, but they really need someone to bring some toughness and some defense to that team. So I think Robert Salah from the 49ers would be perfect hire for them. When you look at the Jags, they're not great on offense or defense right now. Especially on offense, they're in the bottom half of the league in total offensive points scored per game. But when you look at their situation where they're probably going to end up with a young quarterback, I'm still convinced that they're going to get Trevor Lawrence because Trevor Lawrence is going to stiff arm the Jets and not play for him. I think a great coach for them would be Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you can look at what he did with Patrick Mahomes. I don't want his mom getting mad at me. You could just see what he did with Mahomes being a young quarterback, and that's someone you want to bring in who has the offensive mind, who can raise a young quarterback, which they'll likely have. Falcons, they're pretty good offensively as well. They definitely need some defensive help. Even though he's set out this season, I believe, I think Chris Richard is still a good choice for them, assuming they can't get a Robert Salah. I would hope they would go for him, but assuming he's not there, Chris Richard would be a good hire for them. The Texans, I think they need a miracle. Their defense is not great. Their offense is not great. Bill O'Brien really did a number on that team. I mean, first they got to worry about getting a GM, and then they can think about a coach.
All right, some interesting points brought up by both of you guys. I mean, when you're finding a head coach, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want a guy who's going to be strong-willed, you got to be prepared to live with the consequences of that. I think part of the biggest problem we have is they have this belief that a GM and head coach have to have this direct synergy. And honestly, that's not always the case. If you think of some of the most successful head coaches that you had, they didn't always exactly see eye to eye with front office. If you think of the great Tom Landry, him and Tex Schramm didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And there were a lot of things that they did see eye to eye on, but they were able to work together for a period of 30 plus years. Almost 30 plus years, almost 30 years. He was gone in 89. But overall, you look at the amount of time that those guys spent together, and what you're seeing, it's kind of hard. You want a fresh face, you want to go a different direction, you want to bring in a college guy. Well, the problem you have with a college guy is you're talking about a guy who has full control of the program. He does all the recruiting. He makes all his personnel decisions for the program. He does all this. He does all that. So he has full control. In the NFL, it's not guaranteed a head coach is going to have that kind of power. You don't have that kind of power in the draft room. It's usually the GM and the scouting departments who have that power as far as your draft decisions. Your final decision may have the coach's input, but overall, that's one thing. Then we've seen the coaching trees and how they've worked out. So, you know, some are really good. You
See
know,
Matt Patricia.
Yeah.
Well, you can go to
Charlie White.
Yeah. And Charlie Weiss never even had a chance for the head coaching jobs on the NFL level. It was college, but he failed. You know, sometimes a good coordinator is just a good coordinator. You know,
Vic Fangio.
So yeah, and North Turner wasn't a bad head coach. He was just an average one. You know, but he was just as a coordinator, he was a championship coordinator. When you look at some of these guys, though, I'm gonna throw a couple of names out there. You mentioned Robert Saleh. All right. Robert Saleh is a guy who's been a very good assistant, but has he really proven that he could be a head coach?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you know,
I mean, you don't know until he at least has a chance. I think you can argue he hasn't had a chance because of the old boys club, and maybe he's not going to be a good coach, but he deserves a chance at least.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I'll give him credit for, with all the injuries, 13 guys on IR for the 49ers, most of them on defense. That defense is still getting after it on Sundays with a lot of young guys that I couldn't name right now.
Yeah. But that could be just the signs of a good coordinator. If you want to look at something, you look at Raheem Morris, who had his chance as a head coach before. He was fired in Tampa Bay, ends up as the interim in Atlanta. Is actually doing a pretty decent job with the team in Atlanta. So you look at him and go, does he deserve another shot? Because here he is as a head coach starting to show you something. You know, sometimes it takes a while for the light to come on. You know, look at Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll failed in the NFL before he went to USC and then came back. You know, so, I mean, and then if it's a college guy, I mean, let's knock off the low hanging fruit. We're not going to mention Oklahoma when it comes to a college guy coming up. Anybody else have any other names in college that they would think about coming up?
I know. I'd say Brian Kelly, but that's just a sweet gig at Notre Dame. Why in the hell would I ever want to leave that? I mean, you are king of castle.
But if you look at Brian Kelly, for most of his career has been that control freak. You know, I mean, that's part of what his problem was in Notre Dame for many years, that he was so tight gripped on everything in the program. He's let loose the reins a little bit. He's let his coordinators do a little more. I think he should have gotten rid of certain coordinators in the past a lot sooner than he did, namely the defensive ones, Brian Gorder. But anyway, listen, I watched that defense when he was coordinating blow many games in the fourth quarter, and I would sit there and go, "Why are you blitzing like that, knowing darn well you can't cover on the back end? Rush 4, mix up your coverages, do something else." Besides blitz, he would blitz and get caught every time. It was just like, no, and that's why they couldn't beat Stanford late in the year, or USC at times. But I'm beating a dead horse with that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I mean, you look at the college ranks, there's only a handful of guys you'd move up, and even with some of those guys, it's a risky proposition. You know,
I think a name that always gets thrown out is Nick Saban, but Nick Saban went from the NFL back to college for a reason. His style of coaching and leadership doesn't work in the NFL.
Yeah,
he's another guy that's tight grip.
Nick Saban's not exactly 40 years old anymore either, too. I think that's another guy like Brian Kelly, king of the castle. I mean, Nick Saban is Alabama. I mean, he's not buying a meal or paying for a beer ever again the rest of his life. Him or anybody who has a last name Saban.
Indeed. Well, we'll see what happens, but you still have a few more weeks of the season to see who else gets the Game of Thrones ending.
Yeah, maybe Chargers. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that would be a shame because he showed a lot of promise. But I think he got caught in a rebuild, and sometimes that's all it takes to get you out of there. All right, so we're going to move on to the second quarter. Okay, Joe, so try not to throw up on your screen because we're going to mention your Big Ten rivals. We're talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes. All right, so the Big Ten set forth this major rule change for this year, being the COVID-shortened season. You have to play 6 games to be in the Big Ten championship? Well, Ohio State there, who's undefeated so far after 4 games, who'll probably play their 5th game, is probably not going to get that 6th game because of COVID. So, because they set this rule out prior to this season starting for them, now with Ohio State ranked in the college football playoff in the top 4, they could possibly be in the playoff, but they could possibly miss the Big Ten championship game. So you guys tell me, is it fair that they should replace them with Ohio State with Indiana for the Big Ten championship, or should they let them play? So unfortunately, Joe, Keith got to go first, and you get to go first on this topic. So as a Michigan man, it's got to burn your bacon, but you need your answer.
No, I will say that, man. I mean, let's get to the man. This is going to sound really corny. I'm going to say anyway. Let's get to the nuts and bolts of the conversation. It's all about money with college football, which is the reason why the sport's happening right now. So I think if you put your business hat on, what's getting you bigger revenue? Is it the Indiana Hoosiers in the Big Ten championship game, or is it the Ohio State Buckeyes? And also, too, with Ohio State going to the college football playoff, obviously that's more eyes on the Big Ten, more props for the league as well. Now, if you put your fairness hat on, this is the rule you made. If Ohio State doesn't hit the criteria, then they shouldn't play in the championship game. If it's me and the commissioner, I'm making an amendment. We're changing that right now. Hey, we said 6 games, but that's the beauty of being the commissioner. I can do what I want. Now I'll make it a minimum of 4 games. That way I can almost basically ensure the best team in my conference is going to make the championship game. And then when they make it to the playoff, there's not so much talk about, man, this team didn't even win their own conference, but yet they're in the college football playoff. The fair thing to do would be if they don't get 6 games, you send Indiana. But if you're trying to make the most bang for your buck, then you got to do whatever you got to do to make Ohio State be in that championship game.
Definitely. I mean, it's kind of interesting that just a couple of years ago, we would never have mentioned Indiana in the Big Ten championship at the same time.
A big opportunity for Indiana, too. You're right.
Yeah, and it's a big turnaround for those guys, a rapid turnaround. And honestly, that would be an interesting scenario. It really would be. All right. Keith, your turn on this one.
I mean, look, we all knew heading into the season, I think we even talked about it on this show before the season started, that something like this would happen because of COVID. Whether it be teams being in a college playoff because they don't deserve to be here because no one else played, or teams not making a college football playoff but deserve to be there. It's a mess. The one advantage that I think the Big Ten has right now is the revenue part. They'll take a little bit less. Actually, they'll take a lot less of a hit because they're not going to be able to sell out stadiums anyway. So they can sit on their high horse and play the fairness game from that respect, because they're not going to make a lot of money whether it's Ohio State or Indiana in the Big Ten championship. And honestly, I don't really think at this point in the season, or considering the circumstances of the season, Ohio State really cares if they win the Big Ten championship. Really, they want to win the national championship. That's where the true money comes in for the program now and in the future. I mean, is it unfair that they don't get to make the Big Ten championship? It is, but the rules are the rules. Everyone else has to follow them. They're going to need to follow them. But I don't think you'll hear much complaining from them as long as they make the national championship. And the Big Ten gets to have their cake and eat it too by not having them in the Big Ten championship. They're going to lose revenue no matter who's there, but they're going to gain more revenue from Ohio State playing in the college football playoff.
Ooh. Well, I don't know if I agree with you on that, not being a big deal playing in the Big Ten championship. There's a lot of pride and money thrown into that pot when it comes to that game. So I don't know. I
think normally it is, but how much money is there this season? They don't have fans in stadiums.
Sponsorship, TV. It always makes a difference.
Yeah, those commercials. Wow. No, I definitely. I mean, like I said, it'd be a big opportunity for Indiana University. I mean, have they ever been in the big? I'm gonna say it'd be their first time ever in the championship game, and those guys have blood, sweat, tears at the weight room, just like Ohio State has. But unfortunately, you look at lineage of college football, Ohio State is like the program to beat. Take it from a guy that's had his teeth kicked in with Michigan for the last, 10 years. Ohio State's not a joke.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you look at some of the other schools that have been that surprise. The big loss by Northwestern this weekend took them out of that scenario because Northwestern was playing at that point where they were looking to be in that game. Had they continued to win out. So it's going to be an interesting scenario. What happens? I mean, it's kind of hard to hold it against them because of COVID. They would have played the game if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah, true.
So it's kind of hard to say. Well, because COVID took that game away, we really can't put you in the game. Although you're undefeated and ranked in the top 4 of the country.
Wasn't the first game supposed to be? Wasn't Ohio State's first game this season supposed to be a trip to Oregon?
Yeah. Yeah. So imagine how if there was no COVID, this season would have played out. First of all, you would have had no Notre Dame in the ACC, right? So although they play an ACC schedule for the most part anyway. So, but they added extra teams to their schedule because they had to play an all ACC schedule. But nevertheless, getting back to the Big Ten, it's just when you look at that scenario, it's kind of hard to see it if Ohio State is undefeated not being in that game. It just really, I don't know. It just would not seem right for some reason. Even though they said 6 games, it was the reason why you're playing a shortened season is because of COVID. COVID shortened them to less than 6 games. You can't really beat them up any more than you already have. So, with that being said, we're going to go to halftime a little early. So, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to teamnbsmerch.com. Get yours today. And we are back as we get ready for our third quarter question. Right. So, quietly, after a little brief losing streak, the Seattle Seahawks have wiggled their way back into first place and have grabbed a pretty firm grip of the NFC West. Meanwhile, over in that other conference called the AFC, there's a team down in South Florida and Miami that somehow, some way was in the top 5 for draft pick last year, who's also now technically in the playoffs if the season ended today. So, with that being said, you guys are going to sell me on which one of these teams, if both make the playoffs as they stand to make the playoffs now, is actually going to go farther. All right, so Keith, you're up.
For me, it's an easy one. I would have to go with the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Dolphins are probably one of the better stories of this season. I mean, no one expected them to be where they are right now. I mean, they were probably considered to be a team picking in the top 10 again, and they're probably going to be picking in the bottom half just because they played so well and outplayed expectations. That being said, when it comes to the playoffs, it takes a complete team to win a Super Bowl. It takes superstars to make a playoff run. And the Seahawks have that superstar in Russell Wilson. And even the Seahawks defense, as decimated as it has been all season, they have been playing just a smidge better. I mean, the Dolphins have been playing really good as well, but if you're going to give me Russell Wilson or Tua and or Fitzmagic, I'm going to take Russell Wilson all day. He has won a Super Bowl. He has the experience. He has the composure. I think Tua will be a good quarterback one day, but Rookies traditionally don't do well in the playoffs. Russell Wilson has more weapons, and that monster DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Chris Carson came back and he played well. I just think even with as bad as that defense is, the experience that Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll have together have a better chance of going deeper into the playoffs than the Dolphins do. I don't think either team can make Super Bowl, but could the Seahawks surprise everyone and make it to the AFC Championship or the NFC Championship? They probably could. Do the Dolphins stand a chance in the first round? I don't think so.
All right, good stuff. Joe, come on in.
Well, I have to agree with Keith. I think if you're the Miami Dolphins, you're just happy to be here if you make the playoffs. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, I couldn't even tell you the last time they made the playoffs, Miami. It's been that long. And, of course, you have the great story with Tua Time. And, of course, he's hurt right now with a thumb injury. But when you got Tua at quarterback and he's backed up by Ryan Fitzpatrick, who sometimes can give you some Fitz magic, it's a fun story. We were giving a hard time to the Belichick coaching tree, but the one person that's been the shining star, in my opinion, of that tree so far, although he hasn't been doing it for very long, is Brian Flores. So I think if you're the Miami Dolphins and you make the playoffs, it's great, but I fully expect them to get bounced first round. I'd be surprised if the Dolphins made it to the wild card round and won the playoff game. I think the part of their growth process is let's first make the playoffs, get the players the experience in the NFL playoff atmosphere. We'll come back and build off of that. I think of Seattle, like Keith said, I wouldn't be shocked if the Seahawks snuck into an NFC championship game. Do I think they can win the Super Bowl? I don't, because that defense, even with Jamal Adams, even with Bobby Wagner, is a straight-up beast, saving Carlos Dunlap from Siberia, a.k.a. Cincinnati, and bringing him to Seattle has definitely rejuvenated that defense, but not enough that I think they're Super Bowl caliber. Russell Wilson's a magician. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are really, really good. It was great to see Carson back in the running back for them on the game last night on Monday against the Eagles. So I do think Seattle will make it farther than Miami. But I think if you're the Miami Dolphins, just making the playoffs, such a big thing for that fan base, for those players. And like we were talking about before, when we were talking about what coaches do we think need to take some of these new jobs, I think if you're the Dolphins, it's a big boost to your culture to make the playoffs as well. But I don't expect the Dolphins to win a playoff game. That'd be huge. But Seattle, yeah, I can see the Seahawks making the NFC Championship game because Russell Wilson's that damn good that he can take them that far.
All right. So it's real interesting because when I look at both scenarios as they exist right now, both of these teams are not exactly in the most favorable position. When you look at it, let's start on the AFC side. Yes, the Dolphins will be a wild card, but honestly, they'd have to go to Tennessee if they wanted to. If the season ended tomorrow, they'd have to go to Tennessee for a playoff game in a wild card round. And if you look at Seattle, well, overall they're the third seed, so they'd have Tampa Bay coming to their house. So neither one of these teams has an easy win in either scenario. They'll be fighting for their playoff lives no matter what. And we've seen in playoff football, anything can happen. So it's going to be real interesting if some of these things continue to shake out as they are. I mean, I think the only sure shot you would look at would be, of course, the Rams beating the Giants in the Meadowlands if the season ends. But for the most part,
you really think the Tampa Bay can beat Seattle?
I don't.
I don't either. I'm not
on a good night. On a good night, I think they can. Granted, it hasn't been too many good nights recently for Tampa Bay, but
it's not televised. Tampa Bay,
but overall, when you look at what they're capable of, and yeah, Seattle's defense has played a lot better recently, but it's still a Seattle defense, and they haven't exactly been lights out when they're at their best. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think there's still an intriguing matchup. If you get something like that in the playoffs, Seattle hosting Tampa Bay, that's going to be a real interesting matchup there. Because honestly, if Tampa Bay plays their best ball, they can beat Seattle, even in Seattle. There is no 12th man. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think that's another thing is that you tilt things a certain way when there is no home crowd. That home field advantage really this year doesn't really make much sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, visiting quarterbacks doing hard counts and getting offsides when they wouldn't be able to at other places.
Yeah. Well, think about it. People go, "Oh, well, they got the Saints in the dome."
The Miami Dolphins don't want any part of the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs and Derrick Henry. That'd be a very uncomfortable situation. That's a guy. It's cold. All they're going to do is run with the occasional play action pass. That would not be a good scenario for the Dolphins at all. But again, they'd be happy to be there. That's, like I said, building block. Yeah, we made the playoffs. We got run over by Derrick Henry, but hey, we were here.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, I don't know what happened there. All of a sudden, I was looking at a black screen. But anyway, I mean, it's going to be a real interesting thing when you talk about dome stadiums, whether you're talking about outdoor stadiums. I think are going to be the only thing when it comes to home field. You get a team that's not used to playing in the snow, and they end up playing in Buffalo. That's going to be a scenario where, home field advantage does kick in if it's Miami going to Buffalo, or something like that. But otherwise, the stadiums that are normally the loudest, where the fans cause problems for the opposing offenses and defenses, that is no longer there. So that's going to be.
They lift the fan ban when playoffs start. Just saying, it's not going to be sold out, but could they make it like 200, 500? They shouldn't, but I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. Just saying. Pretty much.
With the way COVID's going, I don't see that happening.
Hey,
I don't see that happening. So it is time to throw up your fours. It's time for the fourth quarter. We'll be talking about that beloved franchise, folks.
Oh gosh, where's fourth? We need them.
Fourth quarter, cover your way. All right, so you waited all show for the fourth quarter for us to talk about this guy, and there's no gift worse than this. But unfortunately, there was a press conference that was worse than that one. I mean, Adam Gase is the gift that keeps on giving if you are a New York Jets or Adam Gase hater. Okay, so they lose again. All right. And then he has the nerve to come out for the press conference afterwards and starts talking to the press. And one of them asked him, "Well, when did you take over play calling duties?" And if you haven't heard this press conference, I implore you to go back and listen to this answer, because it was the worst, because it lasted about 5 minutes of a jousting session with him and a reporter about him calling plays. And it was so bad that he said, "Oh, no, I'm not calling the plays." But the reporter says, "Well, the offensive coordinator wasn't calling plays. He was talking to the other coach while the plays were being called. And we can see him on the sideline. He's not calling plays, but you are." "Oh, well, I did it for 2-minute drill." Or "He gives me 3 plays to call." I've heard better excuses out of my 10-year-old that snuck into her Christmas gifts. So my question for you guys is plain and simple. I'm going to assume the Jets are going to do the right thing and cut bait with Adam Gase after the season. I'm going to assume that, because you know what? Stranger things have happened when it comes to the Jets. Okay, so I'm going to assume that week 17 is over. Black Monday comes. Adam Gase gets his walking papers. Jets say bye-bye. Does anybody else hire this guy after this season? I mean, after what we've seen in Miami, after we've seen him with the Jets, he still has respect from people in the league. I don't know why, but nevertheless, does anybody hire Adam Gase after this season? So, Joe, this one's all yours.
No. I wish, man, I should have sent it to you if I found the video. Shame on me, Jeff. We need the Mike Singletary press conference. Can't play with them, can't win without them, can't trust them, can't do it, is exactly the phrase in the video it needs to play. If you're going to lie to the media about something as easy as play calling, which is supposed to be your thing, that's your niche, you're good, you're an offensive guru, and you've been anything but that with the New York Jets, stand behind yourself, man. Yeah, I called the plays. Didn't work. Next question. There's no reason to lie about it. The handwriting's already on the wall. I think we all know that by the end of the season, if not before, you will be terminated. So what's the lying going to do? I mean, at this point, if I'm Adam Gase, I'm trying to salvage something so that maybe I can get an OC job somewhere with somebody. So I don't think next season he's in the league. I think maybe he needs a year just to be away. And then after that, of course, someone's going to give him a quarterback coach job or they might hire him as an offensive coordinator because of what he did in the past with the Dolphins. But this has just been a total disaster with his tenure with the New York Jets. And I'm actually very surprised the Jets have kept him on board as long as they have. I'm a big college football fan. Sam Darnold was really good at USC. I could think of probably 4 games this NFL career where Sam Darnold's been really, really good. And, of course, a little bit has to do with injuries, but a lot's got to do with a crappy coach in the sidelines calling really bad plays and not setting up Sam for success. Sam needs to ask to get out of New York.
Wow. Listen, I can't blame you for being that rough for him. I really can't. Just watching him has been rough. Keith, all yours.
Oh, man. First, this would have been the perfect show to have Monty on to talk about Adam Gase. But will he coach in the NFL again? The sad answer is yes. I don't think he should coach in the NFL again. As Joe said, I don't know if he's going to coach next season, but someone is going to take a shot on him all because of what he did with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning made Adam Gase look so good that no matter how terrible he is as a coach in Miami or with the Jets, people still think he has some of that in him because Peyton Manning made that man look like a genius. I mean, if you take away his time with Peyton Manning, what has he done since then? Absolutely nothing. He has nothing to sit his hat on, nothing to be proud of, other than when he worked with Peyton Manning. And how many coordinators, even at times head coaches, did Peyton Manning look good? A few. But for some reason, people can't get it out of their head that the numbers that Adam Gase put up with Peyton Manning had almost zero to do with Adam Gase and everything to do with Peyton Manning. But just because of that one successful stretch that he had with him, people think they're going to catch lightning in a bottle twice, and he'll get hired again, and probably 2 more times after that before people finally realize that he just is not that dude.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, listen, I don't know what blackmail photo he has of somebody that keeps him employed. Those guys have been fired for good reason, and he's just been pathetic. And I know people were saying they're keeping him around so they can secure the number 1 pick. And is isolating your fan base worth that much? I mean, I granted, yes, Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be a generational talent. As somebody who's evaluating him, he's going to have a first-round grade on my board. He's going to have he's a great quarterback.
What do you want to play for them, though?
I don't know how many times I have to say it. Trevor Lawrence will not be playing for the Jets. It's not going to happen.
Strong
arm will not play for them.
And he doesn't have a big quarterback class behind him to stop them from having to leverage over him. He's going to have the leverage in that situation. It's going to be him, Fields, and I know we're talking about the kid from BYU as a potential first rounder. I don't see him as a first rounder. I think he's going to be a darn good quarterback. I don't have a first round grade on him, so that's not somebody I would take in the top 10 with the number 1 pick. But overall, I mean, listen, right now it is the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, and deservedly so. And with the class that he's in, he's going to say, listen, if this team is this bad and I don't see anything from you guys that says you're going to be that much better when I get there, I don't want to go there. I don't want to play there. And who wants that drama if you're trying to build a team? If I'm Joe, I forget the GM's last name, but if I'm the Jets GM, I'm going to go, do I really want that problem? You know, when I get to the draft, I want this to be seamless. I want to go in there where I have my guys that I've evaluated. I want to sit them down on the board. I want to talk to them, talk about their background, confirm what I believe about them, and plain and simple, let's get drafting. Let's get to work. You know, my new head coach. Do I really want them to give me conditions? That's going to be something that they're going to have to deal with. But overall, I mean, how could you justify hiring this guy after what happened in Miami, after what's happening now with the Jets? I mean, like I said, this press conference, I mean, like I said, it is hard to top anything like this. I mean, when you get introduced, and this is the most memorable thing about you being introduced as head coach, to go into a press conference and put this kind of situation up where you can't even be honest with people that you were calling the plays. And it's not like you were doing such a great job and you had to turn it over because you had to be a head coach. You were doing a poor job, which is why they took it away from you. So if I'm an owner, if I'm a GM, I am not risking my franchise or my job on this guy.
Get him out of there.
I'm not hiring this guy, not as an offensive coordinator, because honestly, the only stint as offensive coordinator that he won was when he had good old number 18, Peyton Manning, throwing the football for him. And honestly, Omaha was calling the plays on the field.
Yeah, so, like you said, yeah.
So
yeah. So I can't remember. Did the Jets fire their GM?
No. They brought in a new GM
after the game Sunday.
The Jags got rid of their GM, but the Jets GM is he's new. This is basically his first real full season.
So that's the thing that I think is kind of sad is if they haven't fired him this season or last season, are they really going to fire him now?
Well, you fired the GM that hired the guy.
Yeah,
you didn't fire the coach that he hired. It was bad.
And so the GM that came in didn't fire him. So I mean,
again, logic says have on his family to keep his job. There's no way they can bring him back again next week.
Logic says they fire him, but when you think about it, they haven't fired him yet. So what's gone so bad from last year to this year that they can find a reason to fire him?
If they don't fire him and they draft Trevor Lawrence, he's going to pull an Eli Manning and strong arm him. He'll get drafted by the Jets, and they'll trade him somewhere else for a boatload of picks. Lawrence won't play it down for the Jets. If they keep their coach.
Only thing, he'll give him a pre-draft meeting.
Yeah, just people. He won't be the bad guy. He should tell them from the break, "Hey, that's your coach. We're not going to play for you guys."
Well, maybe I'm reading the tea leaves wrong. Maybe this was a voodoo spell to say I'm not losing my job. Maybe that's what that was. I think I figured that whole scenario out. Well, there's no voodoo spells involved with this. This is all about points, and so it's time to award a winner. All right, so tallying up all the points, there's nobody else to go to the back. It's just the winner and who didn't win. So, with that being said, tonight's winner is
I need to videotape myself doing that.
Joe Cardozo takes it tonight. So therefore, Keith, I'm sending you to the back. We'll come back and chop it up afterwards. We have some overtime here to talk some more football and make fun of Adam Gase. Hang on 1 second. Joe, it is yours.
I don't have a
3 minutes of FaceTime.
For my FaceTime, I just want to talk about the NFL and this whole COVID-19, the protocols, what we saw happen with the not just the Baltimore Ravens, but the Denver Broncos. I just feel like the league, hopefully we've gotten through the roughest patch, but if what happened this past week happens again, they might have to put a pause on this thing for at least a week or two. I just think that as a football fan, what we saw with the Denver Broncos it was just sad. Kudos to the wide receiver turned quarterback. I can't imagine having 2 or 3 hours to cram 30 to 40 plays into your brain, wake up early in the morning that day, do one more quick refund on that, and then hit the field and play against, the New Orleans Saints, who aren't slouches at all on defense. So I give them all the credit in the world, but if you didn't have irresponsible people in the quarterback room for Denver, and if the coaches were holding them accountable to wear their masks when they're in the meeting rooms, they would have had a competent NFL quarterback under center on Sunday, but they didn't. And then to have this Pittsburgh-Baltimore game change 1, 2, 3 times, have 6 starters not play for the Ravens, and of course it ended up being a better football game than what we thought it was going to be. But I just think the league needs to really take a look at if they have another rough patch, and I hope they do not, knocking on everything wood, hope this is just a one-time thing. They might want to put a pause because they have that Week 18 in their pocket. And the goal is to finish the season. The goal is to have a full season and award a champion like the NBA did, like the WNBA did, and like MLB did. And I think if they don't take it more seriously, the teams and the league, when they have these big pops, then they might not make it to the end of this. I hope they do. Obviously, we all want to see a champion. But I just think if they have another big pop like this of positive tests, the league will want to think about making some pauses on things. And I think, as far as I know, too, the league has not fined those quarterbacks from Denver. I know that the Broncos themselves as a team fined those 4 individuals. But I just think everybody involved, as far as personnel, coaches, staff from the NFL teams, need to really hunker down on these things, make sure these protocols are being followed so we can get the end goal. And the end goal is to get a Super Bowl champion.
Good stuff. And you're exactly right. I think what you're seeing is real life bleeding into pro football. Everybody in the U.S. is tired, in the world especially, but in the U.S. especially, they're tired of COVID. And we saw it over Thanksgiving. And everybody said, don't travel. People traveled. So, they did exactly what they weren't supposed to do because they're tired of it. And the players are starting to even get to that point. I'm tired of wearing my mask around the facility. We're all tested. Well, I guess you found out that you still need to. Same thing with the Ravens, special teams coach, or was a trainer running around.
Coach,
yeah. So, listen, I've seen it, and even on the high school level, coaching, I kept my mask on at all times. The minute I got out of my car and walked into the stadium, my mask was on, and it didn't come off until I left. And I had coaches running around the field with their masks down in pregame, and I was not going anywhere near them. I can't afford to bring it home, and and it's real. Like I said, I have friends that are in the ground because of this virus, so it's not cool. And I get that it's taken so much away from us, but these guys have gotten to this point with the NFL. It's at this point, it literally is full steam ahead.
Yeah, you're 5 weeks away from finishing the regular season, man.
Yeah, they're going through no matter what, and they're going to drag the teams through to the end, and then it's just playoff teams at that point, and everybody's going home week by week after that. So at this point, they're literally dragging bodies with them till week 17.
Well, the crazy thing is, actually, 2 crazy things. So Goodell was on at halftime, and he flat out said he thinks they're doing a great job with their COVID protocols, which was, I'm not going to even address that. But as far as
man, keep it real.
As far as the Ravens go, I don't think it's over for them. I mean, they did push their Cowboys game back to Tuesday next week, but as late as yesterday, they still had players testing positive for COVID. So I don't even know if they're going to be able to play on Tuesday because they can't stop the outbreak that they have there. So, well, if it gets to a point where they have to keep pushing that Cowboys game back like they did the Steelers game, then they have a real mess on their hands.
You want to know what that means for the Cowboys?
They're hoping to just get an easy win.
Did you say easy win for the Cowboys?
Nothing's easy for the Cowboys, don't you?
I mean, they'll find a way to mess up a forfeit, but that forfeit will be the easiest win for them.
They'll find a way to mess up a forfeit.
That right there is the Cowboys season in a nutshell. Okay, there is no such thing as an easy win in 2020 for the Cowboys. Even the games that they've won have not been easy. Far from it. Every one of them. I swear to God, if you have Cowboy fans that haven't had a heart attack yet, keep watching.
I enjoyed the holiday beatdown we gave you guys on Thanksgiving. It was fantastic.
I know you did. I know you did. The only team in the league that resembles a Champions League name came into their house and beat them on Thanksgiving. And honestly, it was actually a good game until the Cowboys coaches got involved. So, I mean, that's such a brutal.
We're triggering Jeff and bringing up some bad memories. I can see his.
Listen, I've lived through 1-15, my man. There's nothing worse than that. Okay. There was no listen. I've had some bad seasons as a Cowboy fan, but 1-15 was the worst because it just looked like we didn't have a chance at any game. How we beat Washington that year, I don't know, but we did. But it was bad that year. I mean, when the Eagles are putting bounty, the highlight of the Eagle game was them putting a bounty on our kicker. You know, what can you say? That's just a really nasty year. We haven't had one that bad since, but this one right here resembles it's the pain of 2015 when we lost Romo twice. That kind of feels like this year.
Hey, but at least you get a high draft pick.
Yeah.
I agree.
No, Armando. No.
Take both of them off. I agree.
No, Armando. I'm
the first person to sign that. I'm so tired of watching the Lions on Thanksgiving. Who cares?
Well, that's the oldest Thanksgiving Day game. I don't think they're ever going to take them off because of that. And we know. Listen,
each other every year.
And believe it or not, unfortunately, every Cowboy game has been in the highest ratings, if not the highest ratings, every week, which is a shame because they haven't really been exactly the greatest team to watch. So, but because so many people either love them or hate them, everybody watches. So you'll never get them off of Thanksgiving, Armando.
They can at least kill two birds with one stone and have the Lions play the Cowboys every year.
There you go. Yeah, okay. I'll take that so I can get it over with.
You know, but Armando, the good thing about both of those teams playing on Thanksgiving, very little chance that the Jets end up there. So, but yes, you know, this is going to be an interesting weekend, though. You know, we're getting to the end of the college football season. Notre Dame's already been told they're in the ACC championship, so no matter what happens with them this weekend, and Armando agrees with me. It's bad when you get a Jet fan that agrees with me about that. But, right? So, I mean, honestly, we just got through the end of the NFL week, so a lot more on tap. So, what are you guys looking forward to this weekend out of matchups?
Ooh,
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, I think the game that probably has the biggest implications is going to be the Browns versus the Titans.
Yep.
Because you have the Titans who look like a good team, and the Browns how are they 8-3? Like, I don't know how that happened. So, I mean, it will be a big win for the Browns. It will be a big win for either team. It will be a bigger win for the Browns.
Yeah.
They can actually look good beating a legitly good team, and they haven't done that yet.
Put up or shut up time for Cleveland, I would say. Big game for Baker. I mean, all those guys, Baker, Mayfield. I think their coach, Stefanski, should be coach of the year, or at least a strong candidate for coach of the year. You win this game, you pad that resume even more. And Tennessee just absolutely beat down the Colts, which I didn't see coming at all.
Nobody saw that coming.
But it was the way they did. They beat them down physically, out-coached the whole nine.
It would be great if they could flex that game to Sunday night instead of the Broncos. And even as a Broncos fan, I'm saying I don't want to see them on Sunday night.
Who's your quarterback?
Who's the quarterback? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Well, that's a very bad matchup. So when I saw that game and how it was playing out with the Titans and Colts, that's a bad matchup for the Colts. When you look at the Colts defense, they're a speed defense, and you got a big bruising back there in Derrick Henry. That's not a good matchup. Not a good matchup at all.
Yeah, he just ran over everyone, literally.
Yeah.
And AJ Brown. AJ Brown as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could have shut that. They could have shut that down at halftime because he was just. If they let him run wild in the second half, he was going to set a rushing record.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Without a doubt. We'll have to see. That's something that was definitely interesting.
Indeed. Well, it's almost time to go. Any last thoughts for you guys?
The Raiders can't lose to the Jets this weekend. Come on. They laid an egg in Atlanta. I know a lot of Raider fans thought this is it. This is a gimme win, and they laid an egg in Atlanta. You cannot lose to the Jets, not just because of the fact that they're the Jets, but also because they haven't won a game all season. Don't let your team be the team that allows them to get their first win.
The funny thing is, like, all throughout that Raiders game, they were showing a graphic that the last time they played the Falcons at that point in the season is when their season fell apart. And it looks like that is going to happen all over again.
You can't go with the Chiefs and then lose to the Falcons, and then you can't come back and lose to the Jets. You can't.
Well, I'll tell you what. John Gruden will have a hard time sleeping if he loses this weekend.
For sure. His count will still be better than all of ours combined, but still, it'll be a tough sleep. And also, too, one last thing I'll say about the coaches. Matt Nagy, who I think might be is on a super short leash. You lose to the Lions this week. The Bears will also be looking for a head coach and a franchise quarterback next season.
And a GM.
Yeah, Bears fans are angry. They've been all over social media, man. Woo.
Yeah, I was saying Mitch Trubisky, he was 3-0, they benched him, and then you see why they benched him.
You saw my tweet, Pat. You saw my tweet, Keith. What if he goes out and balls out? Yeah, after like the second series, I was like, I need to go back. Horrible, man.
Well, that's going to be a threesome because all three of those guys are joined at the hip. Pace brought in Nagy, and then Pace brought in Trubisky. Although, from what I hear, Nagy didn't want Trubisky. So, but nevertheless, when the head coach goes and that quarterback goes, the GM is going with him. I don't think that he sticks around after all this. I think that's something that is predetermined at this point.
Yeah, it'll be a triple play in Chicago for sure. For sure. Sam Darnold, man. Come on, Bears. Get in the phone. Get on the phone.
Well, listen, Sam Darnold to me, you know who he reminds me of? A little more relatable version of Jay Cutler. You know, both of those guys have good arms. He's a little more personality than Cutler had, but both of them are also turnover machines. So with Sam Darnold, you're going to get the goods of Sam, you're going to get the bad of Sam, just like you did with Jay Cutler. Can you live with both?
See, I don't know about that with Sam just because of the weapons, man, or lack thereof, and also the lack of structure with the Jets. Not that the Bears are a model of consistency at all.
I mean, dude, I don't think turnovers matter as we see from that $100 million quarterback in Philadelphia.
Oof.
Well, listen. All right, when I evaluated Sam Darnold in the draft, all right, Sam Darnold, the senior year at USC, when he was already projected going into that season to be the number one pick in the draft as a quarterback, turned the ball over 21 times his senior year. Okay, so I said when I did my evaluation, I said that's going to carry over to the NFL because they were careless turnovers. Okay, the pick six he threw in the bowl game in Ohio State where he threw it right to the linebacker and the kid ran it back untouched. Those were errors that were going to make their way into the NFL, and they have exactly done that so far. He'll give you some brilliant moments, and then he'll give you some Sam Darnold moments, and that's just how it is. Some guys are just that way.
Not Sam Darnold moments. Oh God.
You know, I think the only thing that made his rookie year so weird was the fact that he got mono and missed games. Other than that, you would still continue to have the typical Sam Darnold moments.
It's going to be a good 30 for 30 one day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for the name of that one, Sing Ghost.
Yeah. I mean, golly.
Well, it's like you look at the last couple of quarterbacks they were drafted. You have to weigh out which one had the weirder moments. Sam Darnold's had some weird moments. Or do you look at Sanchez with the butt fumble?
USC quarterbacks, man. Carson Palmer is the gold standard, and everybody else is just ugh.
Well, Carson Palmer had a solid career, except for the fact that I think he would have been better had he not tore up his knee his rookie year. Then I think that changed the course of his career, that knee injury in the playoff game. Because they actually had a pretty good team in Cincinnati.
Yeah. TJ Johnson, the defense was good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think unfortunate circumstances did derail the apex of his career.
I would agree. Sure, I know that much.
And speaking of apexes, we have passed the apex of this show. So it is time to close it out. So, guys, I'm going to send you to the back, and I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. All right. So another episode in the books. We'll be back again next week. Once again, Wednesday night, 9:00 live. There will be another episode of also Inside the Film Room coming out this week. It'll actually be Bill Carroll joining me. We're going to talk some safeties. So that's going to be a fun episode where you get to hear two guys breaking down film. So with that being said, this has been No Huddle Necessary. I am your host, Jeff Barnes, saying so long and see you next week. The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to teamnbsmerch.com. Get yours